Welcome to the SocksGone podcast, where we unravel the secrets of exceptional customer service and show you how to knock your customers' socks off. Tune in, get inspired, and take your service to the next level. SocksGone, where our socks are always knocked off.
Okay, welcome back to the SocksGone podcast, where our socks are always knocked off. Really excited today. I have a special guest that means a whole lot to me. Been a part of my family for a very, very long time. So really excited to have him here today. My guest is Joe Cunningham. He owns a very awesome school, and I'll let him tell you about that, called TAC, as well as a heating cooling company. Very, very successful. So excited to have him. Joe, what I'd like to do to get started is really just hear about your journey and your background, your superhero origin story, if you will.
Okay. I don't know if it's a superhero origin story, but I've been in the business for a long time. You know, when I was in high school, I never envisioned myself doing anything like this, because when I got out of high school, I really wanted to become a blacksmith and a horse trader. And that's kind of what I did for a while, but I found out I had to do some things that were a little different. My first trade was actually as a plumber, and I started doing plumbing work and helping my uncle, who was a licensed plumber, when I was pretty young, 13, 14 years old, because back then it was a fun thing to do. You know, go help your uncle. You got to just bring him stuff. And then we went really cool places for lunch. So I thought, wow, this is a great job. But then after I started really working for him, I found out that I did a whole lot more ditch digging than I liked. So I knew I needed to make a change. So I changed from the plumbing industry to the construction industry, because in the plumbing business, my uncle liked to do a lot of new construction. So I met a lot of other people, and I'm watching these guys while they're doing really cool stuff like framing houses and putting on trim. So I thought, you know, framing houses, that looked okay. And I worked for some of them, and I learned how to frame houses. So I had a framing crew, and then people would ask me to fix their house. So I went from framing houses to doing home improvements. And the home improvement thing was a big revelation to me. You know, learning how to fix people's houses, but I knew how to do the work and I didn't know how to sell anything. So I went to work for a home improvement company as a canvasser because things had slowed down. It was wintertime. I made the mistake of moving to New York State, and I about froze my ass off up there. But they had an ad in the paper and it said wanted canvassers, you know, so I didn't know what a canvasser was. So I thought I'd go in and do that. And they explained to me what a canvasser was and how I'd get free company training and how I get a guaranteed salary, how I have opportunity for advancement. So they taught me how to go out and knock doors and sell. And that, I guess that's probably, other than getting some technical background, that's probably what got me into the sales side. Mm-hmm. So I started canvassing, and I was getting this guy's a lot of leads. And I looked at him and I thought, well, if this guy could sell, anybody could sell. So I started selling. And I built my own way of selling. They had people that helped me. And I had a lot of people help me along the way. And one thing led to another. And came to Houston. I was still in the home improvement business. And then I found out about air conditioning. And I found out air conditioning was easy to sell. The first job that I sold was on a room addition that I did. And the guy who framed the stuff for me had a brother in the air conditioning business. So the lady that I framed or built a room addition for, she said, Joe, this thing, my air conditioner didn't work too good last year. You put this big room addition. I know it won't work too good this year. Can you put a new air conditioner? And I told her, I said, I don't know if I can or not, but I'll find out. So the guy's brother came down there. He gave me a price. I charged her $1,000 profit. She said she'd pay it. I thought, holy crap, this is easy. So I went to work with him for a while to learn a little bit about it. And I applied my selling skills to that. And I became one of the first people that ever sold $1 million worth of heating and air conditioning equipment in this business. And that's not a big deal anymore, because we got guys selling $5, $6, $7, $8, $9 million. But back then it was almost totally unheard of. And another condition that I had working against me was I didn't have an air conditioning company. And I didn't have any installers. I didn't have any technicians. I had nothing. I got all my leads going door to door. I was a door-to-door air conditioning salesman in Houston. A lot of people said you couldn't do that, but I didn't know that I couldn't, so that's what I did. And the subcontractors that put equipment in for me, they supplied equipment and all. So all of a sudden they were buying more equipment than they had in the past. And their distributors asked them how they sold that much. And they said, we're not selling it. This guy's selling it. Here's his card. Go see him. So they came and asked me. They said, how do you sell this much equipment? And I said, well, here's what I do. I get in my truck every day and I drive across town, and then I'll pull up in a neighborhood and I stop. And then I get out and I walk down the street and I knock on people's doors and I ask them to buy this stuff. And you know what some of them do? They said, you can't sell air conditioning like that. I said, I know, but that's what I do. Well, after about 3 years, they figured out I really could do that. So then everybody had a deal for me. They wanted to buy directly. They wanted me to buy directly from them. And that just wasn't the way I did business, because I didn't have an air conditioning license. I could sell it. I just couldn't put it in, so I had to work the subcontract route. Well, it got me a lot of attention. Carrier saw what I was doing, and Carrier approached me about helping two of their contractors who were about to go broke and owed them a whole lot of money. And they offered me a bunch of money if I'd go help them learn how to sell the way I did and get them paid off. So I went to work with those two contractors for 6 months. We got Carrier paid off. Carrier came back to me again and said, could you put a seminar together? So I did. And our seminar grew from 4 to 6 to 8 hours. All the Carrier distributors in the state of Texas came to see what I was doing in Houston, and they asked me to go to work for them. So I worked for all 4 Carrier distributors in Texas. And I wrote a sales and marketing program called Texas Tough. Carrier saw what we were doing in Texas. They asked me to build a national program for them, which I did. And I traveled all over Texas, Louisiana. I did a bunch of stuff for Carrier nationally. I met some guys that owned a company that was selling diagnostic equipment, which was really kind of revolutionary. The company was called Retrotech. They offered me a distributorship, which I took. And I taught people how to sell using their product. During that time, there was a new organization, and I know you're familiar with, being formed back then, called Contractor Success Group.
Yes.
And a lot of those guys bought blower doors from me from Retrotech, and I gave seminars all up and down the East Coast. They came to my seminars. They said, you need to meet the guys that started Contractor Success Group. So I went to St. Louis. I met Jim and John, and they asked me to go to work with them and run Future University for them, which is where I met your dad, which was a long time ago. That would have been 1993 or 1994. I'm not sure you were even around at that time.
1994. Yeah, I was 4 years old.
Yeah, well, you were pretty little. And we got to become good friends over the years, and I worked for Jim and John. I was president of Future University for a while. Then they wanted to do Service Experts, and they asked me to help them do that. So I helped with Service Experts, and I put that together. And then they wanted me to move back to Nashville, so that was not in the cards for me. And we started doing consulting work with lots of Train and large distributor networks throughout the United States. And now I work with Train, American Standard primarily. I do a lot of work with the best practice groups, Service Nation, Service Roundtable. I do a lot of speaking for them. I've been very blessed in my career with the contractors that I've met. And I still do business with, my oldest consulting client is Ben Stark. And I met Ben in 1989 when he had 1 truck and 1 helper. And I've helped him grow his business. In fact, I've helped him grow 3 businesses to the point where he grew them and sold them and grew them and sold them and grew them and sold them. So it's been an amazing career. I was elected to the HVAC Hall of Fame. I'm one of only 52 or 53 people that have ever been in that. And I've been voted top 10 most influential person in the heating and air conditioning business, and consultant of the year twice in the US and once in Australia. So I've been very lucky with the people that have allowed me to do what I do. And now I've got 2 trade schools where we teach entry-level HVAC and plumbing guys. We can take a guy, if he can spell AC on day 1, I can turn him into an advanced maintenance tech in 10 days. There's not going to be a full-blown service tech. He's not going to go out there and troubleshoot communicating systems, but he can go do tune-ups. He can do basic no-cools. He can do basic no-heats. He can sell service agreements. He understands sequence of operation. He can use his gauges. He can use his meters, and he knows how to check every single component on a heating and cooling system. And we put him on a checklist so he can't mess up. And most of the time, these guys, after 5 or 6 weeks, are surpassing the existing guys that have been there for 5 or 6 years because they don't know how to do it the wrong way. And they forge ahead and do it well. We do the same thing on the plumbing side. So I've had a pretty good career. And I've got a heating and air conditioning company here in Houston. We've added plumbing, and now we're adding generators to it. And it's a pretty exciting business. People keep asking me why don't I retire? Well, because I'm doing a lot of fun shit. So why do that?
That's great. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is a awesome story about your journey. I appreciate you sharing that. I love the connection that you had with my dad starting at the Future University. So exciting stuff there. So Joe, one thing I'm hearing, it sounds like you've knocked off a lot of socks in your journey along the way to where you are now. You got a big trail of socks behind you. So what I'd like to hear from you now, we're all about knocking socks off on this podcast. The theme is customer service. And so I would love to hear if you could just pick one story, a customer service story about yourself or about one of your employees, where you just absolutely knocked a customer socks off.
Well, I'll tell you a story about a guy that lives not too awful far from you. I got a call one day in the office. It's been 2 years ago. And he said, my name is Billy. I'll leave his last name out because I didn't tell him I was going to use this story. He said, and I just got in the air conditioning business. He said, I was in the roofing business in Georgia. And I did real well, but I had a partner, and, like a lot of partnerships, things get kind of sideways. So he sold out to the partner. And he said, I've heard and I've read that the air conditioning business was very lucrative. So I looked around. I wanted to buy an air conditioning company. So I found this air conditioning company down here in Florida, and I bought it. And he said, this company's been here for 35 or 40 years, and they have an unbelievably good reputation, but they don't make a lot of money. They've got a whole lot of customers. They've got a really good name. And I heard you could help people grow their business. I've listened to a couple podcasts. So I decided to call you, and I'd want to know if you can come help me. So I said, yeah, I can come. And I gave him the date, and we set the time up. And the first day I went there, and the one thing I don't like myself to be late for anything. And since I'd never been in that town, I don't know exactly how far it is because I flew in the night before. The flight was late, so I got in 10:30. Usually I like to get in early enough I can drive to where I'm going to go.
What year was this, Joe?
It's 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah. So usually I like to drive to where I'm going so I can see where it is and, not get lost, take a wrong turn, whatever, and kind of get a handle on how long it'll take me. So I didn't get a chance to do that. So I've always considered it a bad image if I show up late on my first damn day, because I'm going to tell him all his guys need to come in on time every damn day. So I can't do that. So I get there like a half hour early. And we were supposed to start about, I don't know, 7 or 7:30. But, it was still pretty early in the spring. So time hadn't changed. And it was kind of dark. It wasn't completely dark, but I could see lights on in the office. Somebody moving around in there. So I thought, well, maybe he got here early too. I'll just go in. So I go in, and he's not there. But there's a lady in the office. And he had told me when we were talking on the phone, he said, now I bought this company, and they're doing about $1 million. And I want to make sure the transition is smooth. So I have hired the old owner to stay there and help me get it going. And his daughter, because his daughter is about 50 years old, and she's been in the business all her life. She knows all the people, and she knows what to do. And, she knows how all the flow of the paperwork goes. So, okay, so I go in. So I went in, and I asked if he was there. She said, no, he hasn't gotten here yet. And was I that guy that was supposed to come help him grow the business? I said, yes, ma'am, that's what I was asked to do. And she says, well, I think he's going to do okay here. But the one thing he's got to be careful about doing is raising the prices. Because the reason we have all of these customers is because our pricing is so good. The people love us. And if he raises the prices, all of the customers will leave. And I was told that he was thinking about raising the prices. So don't tell him to do that. So she talked on and on for a little while. And then the owner comes in a little while, and we go back to his office. I said, now, how long have you had the company now? He said, well, I've been here about 2 or 3 months. I said, how well are you doing? He said, well, we're running a lot of calls, but we're not making any money. I said, well, let me tell you what happened this morning and why you're not making any money. But before I do, I'd like you to get your pricing book out now. So he goes in and he gets his price book, and we sit down, and he's selling capacitors for $85 and condenser fan motors for about maybe $135. And I asked him, I said, why are you doing this? He said, well, that's what they told me that I should do. So we sat down and went over how much money he wasn't making on an $85 capacitor. And he said he thought the $85 capacitor was a good deal because they were just buying it for 20, so they were making 400% profit. That's what the lady at the office told him.
Right.
So the first thing I advised him to do, now he had signed an agreement with her that she could work there at least 6 months. So I told him the first thing you need to do, since you've signed that agreement, is tell her that you'd like her to spend more time with her grandchildren. So you're going to pay her, and you'll just call her when you need advice.
There you go.
Just send her home. And then I met the old guy that had sold him the company, and he was in there bidding new jobs for him, which he had taught her pricing ideas. So we had to send him home. And we sat down that week and we fixed his pricing and we fixed his booking. And we contacted all of the supply houses he was buying from, who thought they had to call her for approval for everything, and told them they were not allowed to call her anymore. He'd have to stop doing business with them. And 6 months after that, he sent me this email. I spent a week with him. I rode with his techs. We went call to call to call. They were selling an unbelievable number of $79 tune-ups. No, they were $59 tune-ups. He hadn't gone to 79 yet. $59 tune-ups. And that was it, because they thought that's what you were supposed to do, not bother the customer. They were running a whole lot of tickets that weren't any more than $150. And they were selling systems for about $6,000 or $7,000. So in that visit and in a series of calls after that, in realigning his whole service department, in less than a year, I got, let me see if I can pull that message up. He sent me a printout from the distributor he's buying from, and he installs Rude, and his growth percentage was 893.7%.
Wow.
So he did go up a little bit in a year. And he was so excited when he sent that to me. And he started sealing ducks. And he started selling IAQ. And he sent me one 3 days before that about what he was doing. And he said, I have a new 5-star tech and a new a potential high-level guy that can do it all. You'll love this guy, Sam. You and him will hit it all. He can do it all. Total team player. My dream team is forming. I'm ready to buy some more numbers and take over. The 2 people are long gone. I won't name them. She's working at a supply house, and he's up 893%, or 687%. The first time, 893%. And then he's got his company in a position where 4 people have offered to buy it.
Wow.
In a 2-year period of time.
That's so awesome.
And this is a guy that knew zero about air conditioning. This is a guy who had never run a service department. All he knew how to do was sell in the house. And he took those skills and he put them with what we put together for him. And I can tell you this is the happiest air conditioning contractor you would ever see in your life that has increased his business 893% in 1 year.
Wow.
It is absolutely amazing.
That is amazing. That is a great story. Socks gone for sure. So awesome. Awesome. My socks got knocked off on that one. I got second hand.
But you know what the biggest knock your socks off moment is? All the people that taught me to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because if I hadn't been with people that taught me along the way, like I'm able to teach people now, you know, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, they became personal friends of mine. Relationships with your dad and sitting there and learning from each other.
Yeah.
Those moments are what knock my socks off that allow me to do it for everybody else.
That's right.
And I'm super happy to see you carrying the legacy forward.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm doing, is carrying that legacy that's been passed on to me by my father and by men like yourself. And I couldn't agree more. I am so thankful for the mentors that I've had in my life. A lot of the names that you've named, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, of course, all people that my dad turned me on to growing up. And so, so thankful. You know, people say I'm self-made. No, you're not. Nobody's self-made, right? We're made by.
There's a foundation somewhere.
Exactly.
And you have a strong one.
Exactly. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that. Well, thank you for sharing that. A great story. We'll wrap up with this. You shared and really, you've kind of already said this in your Sock Knocker story, because the last thing I want to ask you is, you know, how can you help the listeners? You know, we got a lot of people listening to the podcast. What are some ways that your company, like TAC, and also I know you own your heating cooling company, which now has been rebranded to Love. By the way, this is being recorded on Valentine's Day, so what a great day to talk about love, heating and cooling. But what's some ways that you can help the listeners, those that are in the trades, knock their customer socks off?
Well, you know, here's the thing. Most technicians, as they go in the field, aren't given the guidance that it really takes to do that. You know, a lot of companies wait to look for techs till they need them, and then they get them and they rush that process.
Right.
And because of that, we don't put the things that we really know that need to be done in place in writing. And tell them, here's what we say to the customer. Here's what we do with the customer. Here's how we make that impression. So even though this technician is in the house and offering products and services, this customer is impressed with him enough that they say to themselves, this guy does such a great job, I don't want to do any business with anyone else but him.
Yeah.
And all of our programs that we do, even our entry level programs for plumbers and HVAC guys, we teach them how to run a call. And if there's any listeners out there who need a step-by-step guide on how to run a call, I'll just send them the list, change it, adapt it, do what you want. Take the stuff that you put in there, take the stuff that anybody put in there, but build a system that allows your techs to do that. I mean, why are there companies out there today that grow and prosper despite the economy, despite COVID, despite all of this stuff? And they're always the most sought after companies in town. And it's what the techs are doing in the field. Because it doesn't matter that you and I are sitting in the office. It doesn't matter that Colleen's worked for me for 30 years and she's running my office. What matters is the impression my guys are making there in the field. Just like for years, it's the impression that I make with the contractors that have the guys in the field. And you're doing the same thing too now. So if there's anything that I can do to help them, techs are hard to find. If you find young guys with a good attitude, or girls, because we've had girls go through the class too, send them to me.
Yeah.
It's really affordable. We have 100% financing for all of it. I can take a guy or a girl, if they can spell AC on day one. We added one more question. They have to know what number to dial for 911. So that's like the graduate student. And if they can do that, I promise you, you will be happy with the person that comes back. They come back ready to work. We give them a set of basic hand tools, gauges, and a meter, and they are ready to get in the truck and run calls just like you want them.
That's it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And what you said there, we create, I always say that, when we knock somebody's socks off, what we're doing is we're creating a loyal customer. And what does that loyal customer do? You're training those technicians to create loyal customers. Well, when you have a loyal customer, they actually spend more money with you, right? They're going to spend more money with you. And so when you have that high level of customer service, you're investing in your technicians, training them on how, not just the technical skills. That's part of it, right? They got to know what they're doing. They got to be competent, but they also have to have that customer service side, right? And that how to deal with the customer, of course, how to sell. And you're creating these loyal customers. So that's what Joe does for your technicians, what I do in the call center space. So very important. Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and looking forward to having you again in the future.
Good. Looking forward to seeing you in person again soon, Corey. Talk to you soon. Thanks for having me on here. I had a great time.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode on the SocksGone podcast, where our socks are always knocked off. I know my socks are missing right now, and I hope yours are too, but we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
SocksGone, where our socks are always knocked off.